Is it finally time that we open the discussion about nerfing movement in Deadlock? Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Dead Unlocked, and that has been the heart of a big part of the community discussion today in the Deadlock community. Essentially, whether we should nerf or tune some movement aspects in Deadlock a little bit, or whether any talk of that really goes against like this kind of core principle of Deadlock, and that is that movement is like a really pure part of the game's skill expression and a really necessary part of what makes Deadlock unique. So today I want to kind of highlight some of the community high points in the discussion, give my own opinion about it, and also talk about kind of what the implications are for the pro scene and kind of how I've seen maybe a movement overtuning show up in pro meta, whether it be drafts or what heroes are dominant. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So to quickly catch folks up on this one, so the first place I saw this discussion happen was on X, where Sleep, who's another Deadlock content creator, posted that low-key movement gotta get touched in Deadlock at some point. This is a MOBA, not Quake. And so that post sparked a lot of conversation about, again, is any kind of nerf to movement really slander against the kind of source movement of Deadlock, or is this something okay? And so my first thought on this was, I've been seeing across games, whether it be pro or in my own games, that items like slowing hex, vortex web, slowing bullets, really any like counter movement items have felt like borderline essential. Especially because when you look at the top heroes in the meta right now, a lot of tier lists have started to pop up. I saw a pretty good one from Lightbringer the other day that to me highlights a lot of especially where the high elo meta is right now. I'm gonna have another video on this coming up pretty soon, but a lot of the high elo heroes right now are so movement oriented. So like Celeste, Apollo, even if we talk about Viper being pretty high, Pockets, Silver, I mean, there's just Lash. So many of the game's best heroes right now can just zoom away from a fight at any given moment unless they are locked down. Even if they do get locked down, they're probably just gonna dispel magic and get away, right? So this is a lot of what is so rage-inducing about movement right now in the game, is when you have a stamina mastery Celeste that you're trying to chase down, or even like Shiv who's able to get away with his right click, it just feels like it's impossible to do so. So a lot of folks, like I said, have chimed in on this one. I saw Poshipop posted, kind of offering that the solution is maybe introducing more items or heroes to counter mobility, and also pointing out something really important in this discussion, and that is that a lot of the best mobility heroes also feel like they're really tanky at the moment. So like Celeste feels like, for example, she should be much easier to kill. She does have her shield on the 2, which is, another layer of defense maybe she shouldn't have, I don't know. But again, like so much of the conversation does at the end of the day boil down to, how do we fix over movement in the game? Because it does feel like the game is at a point right now where the best heroes and the things that are excelling most at the game are just purely the things that can move the most. But on the other side of the fence, I can totally see the opposite point, that movement is so much of what makes Deadlock unique. Even when I play a game like Overwatch now, I just feel like I'm crawling from spawn. I feel like I'm just kind of waltzing through the map. And Deadlock, you feel like you have so much more autonomy over your ability to zoom around. And that's what makes it so fun, so addictive. And even at the highest level, this becomes a huge form of skill expression. So again, at the end of the day, this is not necessarily a simple yes or no thing. Movement has to be a core part of Deadlock's identity. It is truly one of the things that differentiates it as a game the most. But I also think it is at some level overtuned right now, especially when, again, my biggest point being, if you look at must-buy items, Cursed Relic, Vortex Web, Slowing Hex, and then also getting into what we're going to talk about here in a second, pro meta, looking at what heroes becoming must-pick heroes just because they can shut down movement. All right, so there was a best of 3 series, actually the only series in Europe in yesterday's Night Shift that I do want to kind of talk about. This was between Loki, W, and Abrahams. And I thought each of these teams had a really kind of distinctly different idea of the meta right now. And I think Loki W kind of clearly showing that they have a more correct idea of it. They've beaten Abrahams several times recently, and they did so, Abrahams prioritized in both drafts, getting Silver and Apollo, I think 1, 2 in both. While Loki W goes for Celeste, Viper, Bebop, and Victor in every single game that they played in both of the games yesterday, while Obikim played Haze and Mina, Cosmetical played Pocket and Grey Talon. So all those heroes I mentioned, in particular, Celeste, Viper, Pocket, Grey Talon, Mina, which is a lot of their hero pool at the end of the day, all can move, have movement, at least a really core part of their kit, all really hard heroes to pin down. And then you pair that, and I like this strategy from Loki W actually, you pair that with a Haze, that the kind of sole job is to shut down and stop movement, and then Bebop being kind of the same thing, really threatening with hooks, and really able to provide a lot of shutdown potential, which Hoot was on the Bebop. Always a pleasure to watch Hoot in the Bebop, right? And then you have Listic, pushing split lanes, and Zergy kind of able to do the same thing on Viper. So this makes for a really potent offensive comp and also a really crazy like pick-off comp that shuts down movement. Well, they also obviously get Celeste, who's the craziest movement hero in the game right now. So this felt like such a big shutdown. I mean, Abrahams was running heroes like Dynamo, Ivy, Warden, I mean, a little bit of Lash, Silver Apollo, yes, but again, it feels like Silver and Apollo can be so quickly shut down with like a slowing hex that it just didn't feel like it was as viable of a strategy. So again, there's way more to these pro drafts. I'm not trying to oversimplify this point at all, but I think Loki W are showing in this series a glimpse of like what an overtuned movement meta could look like, and that is putting a premium on catch heroes, putting a premium on like silences, and putting essentially a premium on high movement heroes like Celeste, like Viper, like Mina, like Great Talon, like Pocket, that can get in and out in a flash. So again, this is just one example. There was a lot of interesting matches yesterday that I think kind of show where the meta's at, but I think you're gonna see a premium on heroes that can both move like crazy and also the few that can effectively shut those heroes down. But getting back to the discussion at hand a bit, I think Deadlock is always going to struggle with this. I think you're gonna have players that see this game as a pure MOBA, and when you put a game into a box like MOBA, you think of it like other MOBAs. So League of Legends and Dota being the first two that come to mind for me. And movement just is obviously the camera angle makes this a very different game than those games, right? Top down versus third person, but it also just, again, feels like movement is a part of this game's DNA, and it's really not in League. In League and Dota, it feels like you use abilities to get out of situations more, and it feels like in Deadlock, heroes can just get out of those situations with either skill or maybe with an item like superior stamina or something like that, right? So again, it's always going to be on a knife's edge, but I do think that movement is so much of what makes Deadlock such a fun and rewarding game. So I would never want to see this mechanic gutted by any means, but I do think you should shave off maybe the top 1 or 2% of best movement heroes right now and do a little bit of evaluating. Are they a little bit too nimble, especially with their other skill sets, right? Celeste and Shiv being two great examples. Shiv has this kind of permanent movement ability with his right click that allows him to really, especially in high lows, get out of some absurd situations. And then Celeste's movement control allows her to do a lot of the same stuff. A lot of other heroes I'm not mentioning, but let's say you just took those two heroes and you nerfed the movement aspects of them. I would still say Celeste and Shiv are strong heroes after that. Maybe not as insane as they are now, but still very strong heroes. That's kind of how I would think to frame this discussion. Probably no like wide sweeping movement mechanics that I think should be removed or anything like that. Again, the source movement is awesome. Please leave it, Valve. I think they will. But certainly some heroes, maybe some items, some things that create it, you know, and put at least a small number in this kind of overtuned category. That's really where I think the work could be done on the development side. But I would be very curious to hear what your thoughts on this. I mean, the conversation's happening on X, but I know a lot of people don't use that platform. So use the comments of this video to give a lot of the same feedback. And if you think that you have a, you know, kind of a warranted enough opinion, definitely post those on the forums. You know, the devs absolutely read those, so definitely do take some time, post in the forums if you have a lot of thoughts on movement. But at the end of the day, I'm still recovering from being sick. I probably sound terrible, so I'm not going to yap too much more about this. This was just such a, I don't know, these kinds of discussions within communities are really some of the things I cherish the most when I think about like what it is to be a part of Deadlock's community right now. And I think this is a good discussion to have because it's such a core part of the game. I think developers would be interested to hear what the community has to say, and I think the community should be interested to hear what one another have to say. So at the end of the day, I'll quit yapping there, but thank you all so much for tuning in. Should movement be nerfed? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time here at Dead Unlocked.